Hey guys, this is Kevin, one of the two Baccarat guys, and I'm here to talk to you today about what I call the basics of understanding how to play Baccarat, not how to win. That's what we get into on the forum, the club. But I'll talk to you about the basics and how simple it really is. Okay, Baccarat is a game, and you can go out and buy books like this, that'll tell you how to do it or whatever. This was, I think, $7.95 or $7.98. I apologize, but you don't really need to do that because all it really is you have two basic choices to make. One is to bet on the what's called the player, and the other would be to bet on what's called the banker. Okay. Now, I think what keeps a lot of people from even trying to play baccarat is they somehow think that it's an expensive undertaking. They think that the house has a huge advantage over the player, which they don't. But some of the simple things to understand, as I mentioned, the player and the banker. You have those two basic bets. You just choose one or the other, and you do not have to bet every hand. By the way, you can wait for what you want to see. Okay. The beauty of baccarat is that it's the only table game where number one, the dealer, the person that's handing out the money and the chips and dealing the cards, is not a player in the game. Probably many of you have played blackjack before, and the dealer has a tremendous over advantage because they get to go last. And usually, by the time they go last, what happens is that a lot of people have already had to fold their cards because they exceeded 21. Okay, now that's blackjack. In baccarat, the dealer, the person handing out the cards, collecting the money, has nothing to do with the game. Zero. Okay? So that's one player down that you don't have to worry about. The other nice thing about baccarat is typically there'll be up to seven people at a table, at one table, playing this, seven people playing the same game. But in most other casino games, I'm talking about table games, you have to worry about what the person to your right does or the person to your left, he or she. Because however they play their cards, that could affect the outcome of your decision. Okay? That's not true in Baccarat. The only person that can influence whether you win or lose is you. So, in essence, you're really just playing against yourself, which makes it a whole lot simpler. So, I started talking about the player and the banker. Okay? This goes back, the game was invented about 600, 700 years ago. I don't really know. Some say it was in China, some people say it was in France. That was the golden age of roulette, by the way, about 700 years ago. Okay? So probably some of those guys got together and invented it. I don't really know. Okay. Either way, a decision to bet on the player is no more difficult than taking a chip and betting on, usually it's a blue circle. A decision to bet on a banker or not would be to take that same chip and place it on usually it's a red circle, which would be the banker. Okay? They just call it player and banker. You are not the player, and the dealer is not the banker. Think of it in terms of roulette, black and red. Black and red, right? If you look at a roulette game, what do you have? You have a bunch of red squares that you could bet on, or a bunch of black squares. Okay. The next thing that people get confused about, or that they worry about Baccarat, or think that it's a difficult game, is the the person dealing the cards is going to give 2 cards to the player, and they're going to give 2 cards to the banker. Okay? Here are the drawing rules for how they decide. Let's see how to get, there we go. Whether they get 2 cards.
You don't need to hold it up. I'll put it in.
Oh, okay.
I'll edit that out.
Okay. So we're showing you the drawing rules here. And sometimes the player will have to take a 3rd card, just depending, it's the rules of the game, okay? Sometimes the bank will have to take a 3rd card, but not always. So sometimes it's 3 cards on the player and only 2 cards on the banker. Okay? That really has no, you don't need to know the rules. You don't need to, the dealer, the person dealing the cards knows the rules, okay? The only thing you have to know is that you have to place your bet on either the blue square or the red square, okay? Player or banker. Usually that's one's blue and one's red. You have to do that before any cards are drawn. Now, as I said at the outset, many of you know how to play blackjack, or you think you know how to play blackjack, okay? And in that game, usually what happens is the person dealing the cards is going to deal you 1 card face down and 1 card face up. And then you have to make a decision as to whether or not you want more cards or not. And you can take 3, 4, 5, 6, but once you exceed 21, it's called you've busted. And they take your cards, the person dealing the cards will take the cards away from you. They'll take your bet away, and you lose. In Baccarat, what happens is those, however many people are at the table, and you can play it by yourself, by the way. You don't have to play with anybody else. Just like the machine Baccarat, the stadium Baccarat we talked about. You're playing at basically a slot machine, okay? You're playing just by yourself. So it doesn't matter whether you're playing at a table or you're playing on the internet or you're playing at a slot machine in the casino, whatever. What happens is that you make that bet before any cards are dealt. And depending on the outcome of what I call the drawing rules, okay, the side, red or blue, we'll use those 2 colors, that has the total closest to 9 will win over the other side. There is a case also where you could have a tie. But we'll get into that at a later date. Now, how do they determine the total closest to 9? Let's say, for instance, that the player has a 4 and a 10. Those are their 2 cards, a 4 and a 10. 10 card, okay? Well, that adds up to 14. Those first 2 cards. Let's say the bank, on the other hand, has an 8 and an 8. They have 2 8s, right? 2 8s. So that adds up to 16. Okay? If either side, if the player does not have to take any more cards, let's just say that they don't for this particular situation, that 14 becomes a 4 because you have to drop the 1. You have to drop the first digit. And the other side, the red side, the banker side, what we called it, is going to end up with 16. So you drop the 1, and that's a 6. In that particular case, the banker would win. That's it. You've made your bet. If you bet on the player, didn't work out. If you bet on the banker, you win. You have to bet, though, on one or the other, or stay out of the game completely. Okay, so let's just say we go to 3 cards. There's going to be lots of situations where both sides wind up with 3 cards. Okay? And let's say that the player has a 10, and a 3 when all 3 cards are dealt. Okay? Well, that adds up to 23. So what's going to happen is you're going to drop the 2, the game is going to drop the 2, and it will be deemed that the player has a total of 3. Let's say, on the other hand, that the banker has an ace and an ace and a third ace. That's 3 aces. Now, like we use the blackjack analogy, in blackjack, what that's going to be is it's going to be you're probably going to use one of the aces as a 11, and the other 2 as 1, because you don't want to go over 21. In Baccarat, an ace is 1, always 1. It's just 1. So in the case I just gave you, 1 plus 1 plus 1 equals 3, which happens to be the player side. It's the same as the player total, 3. 3 bank, 3 total, that's a tie. Okay, no blood, on either side. You retain your bet. You get to take it back. Nobody takes your money. Okay. Let's say instead, though, that the banker had an ace, and a 10. Okay, that's going to add up to 12, because aces are always 1. So they're going to drop the 1, and it's going to be a 2. In that case, the player had 3, if you recall. They had a 10, and a 3. So they added up to 23, had to slice it off, and you only have 3. The banker is going to have a 10 and 2 aces. That's going to add up to 12. So you slice off the 1, and that's a 2. In that particular case, the player wins. No more cards are dealt. No more decisions are made. No doubling down. Okay? No splitting the cards. You don't have to worry about Susie over here, or what, Johnny over here is doing. And you're thinking, oh, they ruined my game. I'm not going to get to win this one, whatever. I just told you how to play Baccarat. That is all that it matters in Baccarat. Now, I told you how to play. I told you how the game is played. Okay? Remember, the dealer is not the banker, and you are not the player. You get to make a choice of which side you want to bet on. Again, like roulette, red or black, only it's usually red or blue. Okay? And you don't have to play every hand. Okay. So let's say that you won. Let's pretend you bet on the banker, and you lost that hand, or some other lucky person at the table bet on the player, and they win that hand. Okay? The outcome of the game, win or lose, has no bearing other than the fact that the person dealing the cards is going to either take your money because you lost, or they're going to give you money back because you won. So if you bet, let's just say you bet $10. Let's use $10. If you bet $10 and you win, okay, the dealer is going to give you your $10 back plus another $10. They're going to match your bet. If you lose, they're only going to take your bet away from you. So you don't get any more, obviously, because you didn't win, right? Okay. What most people do after they've learned how to play the game is they spend what takes them years to learn how to win the game. Because there are some very quantifiable, mathematical, statistical methodologies. I like to call them methodologies. Some people call them strategies. There's a number of ways to approach the game to get your winning percentage higher. The casino will give you something that looks like this, which is called a scorecard. Okay? The scorecard allows you to keep track of how many bets you've won or lost, or your actual bet if you want. But they also give you something that's called a tote board. Now, the tote board, if you've ever played roulette, you notice you have that tote board that's over there. It has about 20 plays on it, and it's either, it'll give you the number like a red 21 or a black 13 or, whatever, or the double 0 or whatever. The tote board in Baccarat is far more complicated. It has far more information on it. And what it does is it gives you an edge to calculate, to help you make decisions as to whether you bet on that red circle or whether you bet on that blue circle. Okay? That's an introduction to Baccarat. I know it sounds oversimple. It doesn't look like James Bond is playing it. But watch, Casino Royale and some of those games or some of those movies, and you'll see it. You'll see James Bond is playing Baccarat. Looks complicated. It's not complicated at all. It's very simple to play the game. Beat the Casino, our Baccarat club, which is we have worldwide, will teach you how to win the game. Okay? That's what really we're here for, is to teach you how to win the game. Again, my name is Kevin, and I'm one of the two Baccarat guys. Good luck to you.